Good morning.
Hey.
Hi, guys. Well, let's see if they load. Okay. How are you guys tonight?
To fix the lighting right here. There we go. There we go. Better.
Hello.
Much better.
They cut that show again with them monsters. Well, tonight we shoved a Ka and Hexus in the closet. Like they try to do to us every Sunday.
Yeah.
And we figured since we were the ones who started the Dean Corll episode, we'd finish it off.
Also got a little high. What?
Tonight we are repping early?
Trawlers. That's
early.
not Charlie.
This says early sour twerp crawlers. 600 milligram. I just figured I'd put that out there. By the way, we're in California. So when we do this thing, we,
What were we talking? I was talking with Natalie on the,
Hey, Nat!
Oh!
Hey, Mikey!
Yeah, Natalie was like, I was like, hey, did you, send me a video or we're doing tonight?
Poison Ivy and Cowboy from Hell.
Pretty much. I should put that up. That should be our names right now. Cowboy from Hell. Or it would be CBH, right?
CFH.
Cowboys from Hell. No. Yeah, you're right. CFH, you're right.
Yeah, let's not do that since that's the tattoo I have on my leg, actually.
Well, it's still Pantura.
Cowboy from Hell and... Well, if we aren't going to get copyrighted.
Whatever. There we go.
Hey, Mike!
Hey, Mike! What's going on? No, I was talking to Natalie earlier, and I was like, because she's like, my internet's acting up. I was like, you should come out California way. Get some of that good internet.
Watch out for the ectoplasm.
Then I sent her the thing from South Park. I was like, it makes me laugh every time I watch that episode.
That episode's funny. All right, so I'm gonna put up a couple warnings here.
Warning! No, we got to do the super fun one.
Hold on. This presentation is for educational purposes only.
Educational purposes.
Yes. How you use this information is your responsibility. We will not be held accountable for any illegal activities.
I will hold you.
Are you going to do it?
Hold on, let me see if I can do it right. This video contains super awesome content not suitable for people who... I fucked it up. Let me do it. Let me do it one more time.
Do it a la Jello Biafra.
I could do it. This video contains super awesome content not suitable for people who don't enjoy super awesomeness. Viewer discretion is advised.
So I threw the rock
So
at
I
the life-size Hot Wheel car. Sorry. That's the best. Night of the Living Rednecks is the best.
Oh god, absolutely love the Dead Kennedys.
Jello Biafra is amazing. Yeah. I swear to drunk, I'm not God.
I swear to
we are sober so far.
Yeah, it hasn't kicked in yet.
I've been doing very microdoses all day for my migraine. So.
All right.
So we left off talking about the friendship with David Brooks.
This is going to get graphic in this episode. We're going to get into murders and
That's
stuff like
why
that.
I did all the
warnings.
warnings.
We're going to talk about what he did to his victims.
I figure I should let you guys know that that I think next week is going to be even more brutal.
What's his name?
Yohim.
There you go.
Yohim Corll.
Yeah, we're covering Yohim Corll next week.
I would recommend. I will say next week, if you're squeamish, it's not the one for you.
It's when we show you a picture of what Yohim Corll looks like, you're going to be like, "No way, this guy was a
brutal murderer."
Not even that. You just look at him, you're like, "There's no way he's the horny troll that he is." When if you ever read anything about Yohim Corll.
Yeah, we'll be flying later. Mm-hmm. All right, so we left off talking about the murders. I guess I'll just go over that again, actually. So between 1970 and 1973, Corll is known to have killed a minimum of 28 victims. All of his victims were males between the age of 13 and 20, the majority of whom were in their mid-teens. Most victims were abducted from Houston Heights, which is a low-income neighborhood southwest of downtown Houston. With most abductions, he was assisted by one or two of his teenage accomplices, David Owen Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley, known as Wayne. Several victims were friends of one or both of Corll's accomplices. Others were individuals with whom Corll had himself become acquainted prior to their abduction and murder. And two other victims, Billy Balch and Gregory Malley Winkle, were former employees of the Corll Candy Company. Hey, Connor, how are you?
Hey, Connor. What's going on?
So, Corll's victims were usually lured into either one of the two vehicles he owned, which was a Ford Ecoline van or a Plymouth GTX, or the car that he purchased for Brooks, which was a 69 Corvette.
Green Corvette.
Yeah.
69 green Corvette.
This enticement was typically an offer of like a party or a ride. And the victim would be driven to Corll's house. At Corll's residence, the youths would be plied with alcohol and other drugs until they passed out, or tricked into the handcuff trick. It was like a magic trick that they would do. So basically what they would do is put the handcuffs on and be like, look, I can get out of it. And then the accomplice would be like, look, they're trick handcuffs. And then they would trick them into putting on the handcuffs themselves. Or they would just grab them by force. So they were then stripped naked and tied either to Corll's bed or to a plywood torture board, which was regularly hung on the wall. Once they were strapped down, the victims would be sexually assaulted, beaten, tortured, and this would sometimes go on for several days, and then they were either killed by strangulation or by being shot with a .22.
There was actually a couple that I think went on for a couple weeks, not just days. He did whatever he could to them.
Oh, that's cool. She got to meet Sicken and Scurvy on Friday.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. I love hearing that.
They've come to our feeds a couple times. They're pretty nice guys.
Elmer, I'm a hunting wabbits.
Wait, which one came into our feed a lot? Was it Scurvy or was it Sicken? I don't remember.
I'm bad with this.
Yeah.
So, hey Cosmo.
Hey Cosmo.
How are you?
What's going on?
They are very nice. Both of them are very, very nice.
Oh yeah, they're cool. Both a couple times we talked to them.
So the bodies were then tied in plastic sheets and buried in one of four places: a rented boat shed, a beach on the Boulevard Peninsula, a woodland area near Lake Sam Rayburn, which is where Corll's family owned a lakeside log cabin, or a beach in Jefferson County. In several instances, Corll forced his victims to either phone or write their parents with explanations for their absences in an effort to allay any of the parents' fears for their kids.
The boathouse, when we get into that the only way you can describe it is corpse juice. Seriously, that's where he put the bulk of his victims, was in the boathouse.
My husband's name is Frank. I'm sorry.
What happened?
Oh, Cosmo forgot your name.
Oh, it's Frank.
It's Frank.
Not Hexus today, and it's
not Hexus today.
Not Hexus or Vigo. It's just straight up Frank.
They are very nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I used to do it myself.
You know, it's crazy that when you actually find, like, there's a lot of people who do specific characters all the time, but Sicken and Scurvy they're just them, and they're that the clowns they do that they are. It's just they pull it off really, really well.
I vaguely remember seeing something about, like, possibly another character, but I don't know. So anyway, in several instances, Corll had them contact their parents either via phone or letter, saying that they were safe, so that it would explain their absences and they wouldn't go looking for them right away.
The thing with this is when the families would read the letters, they're like, "This is not my kid. They would never want to do anything like this." That's what, and then the cops still wouldn't go out and do anything about it.
Of course,
they just let it go.
So he also was known to have retained keepsakes, usually keys, from his victims. During the years in which he abducted and murdered his victims, Corll often changed addresses. However, until he moved to Pasadena in the spring of 1973, he always lived close to Houston Heights.
You know, if he actually would have moved to Colorado with his mother, the way she wanted him to,
this would have been happening in Colorado.
It would have been happening in Colorado when it took a lot longer to catch him too.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously. There's no way it wouldn't have been happening in Colorado.
Dude, I hope they finally closed the Zodiac case.
They did.
I don't know if they closed it,
no,
but they think they got the...
They are almost 100% sure they know who it was.
Nice.
And
I haven't had the chance to read it yet.
I haven't read all the article yet, but they have pretty much closed the case. They know who it is.
Nice.
And he died in 2018. Yep.
Nice.
Nice.
Yes. Okay, that's what it is.
That's
what I was... Yes, they do. They're great. I was looking at the stuff that they were...
Too. What are Van Bone's characters?
I'll show you.
Okay. But that's cool. I always thought they were just straight up demon clowns, weren't they? Or that's... So they're just clowns, and there's demon clowns, too. Oh, that's rad. That's rad.
That dog is going crazy out there.
Yeah, my mom's home right now.
All right, so now we're going to get into the first known murders. Corll killed his first known victim, an 18-year-old college freshman named Jeffrey Conan, on September 25th, 1970. Conan vanished while hitchhiking with another student from the University of Texas to his parents' home in Houston. He was dropped off alone at the corner of Westheimer Road and South Voss Road, near the Uptown area of Houston.
Uptown girl. Sorry.
Corll likely offered Conan a ride to his home, which apparently he accepted. At the time of Conan's disappearance, Corll lived in an apartment on Yorktown Street, near the intersection with Westheimer Road.
Well, one of the things with the whole hitchhiking and stuff like that, it's actually that's actually pretty common in the 70s. Well, that's one of the reasons.
Well, yeah.
One of the ways Kemper was getting his. That's how he got his victims, was hitchhikers. You know, and it was just like seriously like a very common thing for them to do stuff like that. And I also bring up another thing real fast too with the victims with them writing letters and stuff like that. One of the excuses the cops said is that people at the time too were just. They would get up and just leave and go do whatever, you know, just, all right, today I'm hitchhiking to New York and I'll see you guys when I see you, you know, and that was very commonplace too back then too.
Yeah. So Brooks led the police to Conan's body on August 10th, 1973. The body was buried at High Island Beach. Forensic scientists subsequently deduced that the young man had died of asphyxiation caused by manual strangulation and a cloth gag that had been placed in his mouth.
I think he used the same means
On a few people.
No, as a Gacy did, which was the garrote or whatever, where they put the rope. Was that? I think he did that, didn't he?
No.
Or
he was doing kind of a garrote, but without the.
Gacy was real famous for that. That was his favorite way of killing people, just twisting the rope around their neck and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the body was found buried beneath a large boulder, covered with a layer of lime, wrapped in plastic, naked, and the hands and feet were bound with nylon cord, suggesting that he had been violated. About the time of Conan's murder, Brooks interrupted Corll, in the act of sexually assaulting 2 teenage boys whom Corll had strapped to a 4-post bed.
This is the one where Brooks found out what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Then he told him, and then what he told Brooks was that he was doing a snuff porn. And he was hired to do stuff like this. So the act of being caught in the middle of a child molestation and stuff like that, and a rape, to him, he felt, we're going to kill him later. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be good. I was like, that's going to be less of a crime right there, right? That's just...
Well, so in return for his silence, Corll promised Brooks a car.
And he delivered.
And Brooks accepted. So, Corll later bought him a green Corvette, 1969. Corll later told Brooks that he had killed the 2 young men and offered him $200, which would be the equivalent of $1,330 in 2020, for any boy he can lure to Corll's apartment. On December 13th, 1970, Brooks lured 2 14-year-old Spring Branch young boys named James Glass and Danny Yates away from a religious rally held in Houston Heights to Corll's Yorktown apartment. Glass was an acquaintance of Brooks, who, at Brooks' behest, had previously visited Corll's address. Both of them were tied to opposite sides of the torture board and subsequently raped, strangled, and buried in a boat shed that he rented on November 17th.
Yeah, and this is the start of his, basically his corpse shed is what it was, and he would just dig all the way down and just bury them, layers and layers of bodies. I think they found 19 bodies or so, 18 bodies. No, I'm sorry. They found 17 bodies. They knew there were more buried in there, and then they're like, okay, that's it. We can't look for any more. So, to this day, in that lot, there are still bodies there. No joke.
Yeah. Hitchhiking, hell no, that's a terrible idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I saw an article on that guy that they're looking for who axed his girlfriend.
Yep. Haven't got a chance to read.
Oh! The girlfriend that they just found that dead, and the guy's just pieced out.
The
Gabby, I think her name was.
Oh, the one we were talking about last night?
The recent one, yeah.
Okay.
That's what he's saying. He hasn't had a chance to really read it.
Oh.
And I really think he did it, or at least had something to do with it.
He's in the wilderness right now. They can't find him. I'm pretty sure I'm honestly thinking he just offed himself somewhere.
I was going to say either he's dead.
Yeah, there's no... Look, if you got Dog the Bounty Hunter on your trail... that guy's trying to reignite his career is what he's doing. I swear to God.
Well, what else does he have to do right now? What I was going to say, though, was... either 2 things. Well, a few things here, though. Either he died with her.
I don't think he died with her.
I don't think so.
No. He was. They found him. They were in communication with him or whatever it was, and then when they found her dead body, he was gone.
He pieced out.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure
he may have probably already offed himself.
I think they're either gonna find him like relatively soon, and he's gonna
have just never gonna find him,
or you're never gonna find him because he probably just offed himself is what happened. Or he's in Costa Rica somewhere. Who knows?
Mexico?
Mexico.
Oh, Mexico, tequila, and a donkey show. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, ew, what a disgusting pig. Absolutely. So, an electrical cord with alligator clips attached to each end was buried alongside Yates's body. 6 weeks after the double murder of Glass and Yates, on January 30th, 1971, Brooks and Corll encountered 2 teenage brothers, Donald and Jerry Waldrop, walking toward their parents' home. The Waldrop brothers had been driven to a friend's home by their father with plans to discuss forming a bowling league, and began walking home after learning their friend was not home. Both boys were enticed into Corll's van and driven to his apartment on Mangum Road, where they were raped, tortured, strangled, and subsequently buried in the boat shed. This one is definitely not for the faint of heart, by the way.
Which one is this?
No, I'm just saying these, all of these.
Well, we can even get into how one of the ways. I don't know if they're going to bring it up in the notes.
Apparently, this is happening next to us.
Good morning!
Hello, lowly humans. We are the bunnies of chaos. And, yes, well, Mrs. Grossman, too. We now are in full control of your device.
So join us for this special presentation, in that special way that only the bunnies of chaos can do. Our story is ancient and cannot be found in your normal history books. Our history is hidden unless one knows where to look. In the Codex of old, our history is found in the margins. Long, long ago, in the beginning times, we were happy and peaceful people who lived as one with all other creatures. We played music. We had commerce and trade. We baked bread. And sometimes we even hunted the wild beast. But we knew of humans and the cruelty they showed towards the other creatures. They taunted us. And we taunted them. And we hear they taunted each other too.
Wow, it's freaky. So we knighted the creatures called dog to protect us. But many turned against us and sided with man. It was dog against bunny. And bunny against dog. We fought bravely. And won the battle, but the war was not over. The humans attempted to imprison us. And then took up weapons against us. Many were scared. The great confluence of the elders was called, and the forest creatures were consulted to decide what must be done against this scourge of humans. All the houses of Bunny agreed it was time to go to war. And the bravest among us were chosen.
Onward, forward, we ride at dawn.
We infiltrated their burrows of safety.
Oh, yeah!
Ring-a-ding-ding!
And still they taunted each other. And still we taunted them. The tides of war turned in our favor, as we knew they would.
Help?
And we brought judgment against them for their crimes. We were victorious.
Yay!
Both bunny and human laid down their arms. And a truce was made. So the next time you're in the forest, remember, we're watching.
All right.
There are credits.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Too late.
I'm sorry. The Bunnies of Chaos have one more thing to say to you guys. Yes.
Hoo-yah!
So, yeah, that was, awesome. This is beginning to become way too much. Never. Never. Onward, bunnies! All right. So, between March and May of 71, Corll abducted and killed 3 victims. Wow, we go from Bunnies of Chaos back into this.
Bunnies hopping on back with dogs and dogs.
And people.
Bunnies were fighting dogs and dogs were fighting bunnies. And now we're back into, well,
Death,
let's
destruction,
talk about all
murder,
these boys
strangulation.
being murdered and raped.
So, Corll abducted 3 victims between March and May of 71 and killed them. All of whom lived in Houston Heights, and all of whom were buried towards the rear of the rented boat shed. In each of these abductions, Brooks is known to have been a participant. All 3 of these victims, or excuse me, 1 of 3 of the victims, 15-year-old Randall Harvey, was last seen by his family on the afternoon of March 9th.
That's his friend,
cycling
right?
towards Oak Forest, where he worked part-time as a gas station attendant. Harvey was driven to Corll's Mangum Road apartment, where he was subsequently killed by a single gunshot to the head. The other 2 victims, 13-year-old David Hillegeist and 16-year-old Gregory Malley-Winkle, were abducted and killed together on the afternoon of May 29th, 1971.
One of Brooks's friends, or was it?
We haven't got there yet.
Okay, yeah, he had him abducted and all sorts of stuff so he can get his girlfriend. And he did.
We haven't got there yet.
Sorry.
You're jumping way ahead.
You're jumping way ahead.
So, as had been the case with parents from other victims of Corll, both sets of parents launched a frantic search for their sons. One of the young men who voluntarily offered to distribute posters the parents had printed offering a monetary reward for information leading to the boys' whereabouts was 15-year-old Elmer Wayne Henley, a lifelong friend of Hillegeist. The young man pinned the reward posters around the Heights and attempted to reassure the Hillegeist parents that there may be an innocent explanation for the boy's absence. By the way, so, I'm fucking mental, don't mind me.
We're married.
You 2 are married. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Frank, I love your hat.
Oh, thank you.
That's a great hat.
I think it was Hillegeist. His family actually searched for him for a couple years.
Hillegeist was one of Wayne's friends.
Oh, there was one. Yeah, I think it was him. This family actually searched for him for years and everything. And it, like, they actually got a PI involved who did help, and then started doing stuff.
Well, wouldn't you?
Well, the cops started getting mad that the PI was actually doing their job, busted him for not having a license or something like that, and then he still came back and helped the family for free.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
So, on August 17th, 1971, Corll and Brooks encountered a 17-year-old acquaintance of Brooks named Reuben Watson Hanley, walking home from a movie theater in Houston. Brooks persuaded Hanley to attend a party at the address Corll had moved to on San Felipe Street the month prior. Hanny, not Hanley, agreed and was taken to Corll's home, where he was, you guessed it, strangled and buried in the boat shed.
Taught how to do carpentry.
Oh, yeah. Yay! Ours is in the other room.
Yeah.
You're welcome for the kitty TikTok. Yes. I've been getting awesome kitty TikToks. Kitty cat. So, in September of 71, Corll moved to another apartment in the Heights. Brooks later stated that he had assisted Corll in the abduction and murder of 2 young men during this time that he resided at this address, including one who was killed just before Wayne Henley came into the picture.
Hi, Kisa!
Hey, Kisa! Hello.
This is also one of the ways that actually they speculate he kept from getting caught during his 3-year berserk mode.
Moving around?
He moved to like 5 different... He regularly, on average, was 5 different places in 1 year. 5 or 6 different places. And he was constantly moving.
So, in his confession, Brooks stated that the young man was killed right before...
I burped, sorry.
I know. Henley's involvement in the murders. And he was taken from the Heights, kept alive for approximately 4 days before his murder. The identity of both victims in this one are still unknown. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it.
We have to do a regular commercial now.
The bunnies of chaos are coming. No, they're not. They already did. Hey. All right, so we're going to go to a quick commercial break. Let me, because we're going to start talking about Elmer Wayne Henley. So let's go to a quick commercial break, and we will dive back into this right after. If I can find the commercial.
You're way down too far.
Why?
Up.
Hold on.
You missed the new ad.
It's not my fault you moved everything around. Okay, we'll be right back.
This is Mikey from Out of the Ordinary, and you're watching PBDC TV.
First thing in the morning, when I'm listening to music and getting a little bit of time for some creepy research, I'm always representing with my PBDC merch. What a better way to have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Don't forget to check out our other cool merch at rootsbleedred.com. That's rootsbleedred.com.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
Right? That diva. Always asking for more money.
Kisa, yeah.
So, the participation of Elmer Wayne Henley. In the winter of 1971, Brooks introduced Henley to Corll. Henley likely was lured to Corll's address as an intended victim. However, Corll evidently decided that he would make a really good accomplice and offered him the same fee, $200 for any boy he could lure to his apartment, informing Henley that he was involved in a white slavery ring.
Wow. I didn't see that in the notes.
Operating from Dallas.
I know, that's what that was the thing he was saying, that he was doing snuff films for and stuff like that, and it just wasn't any of that.
So Henley later stated that for several months he ignored Corll's offer.
Carl.
However, in early 72, he decided to accept the offer because he and his family were in dire financial circumstances.
Wayne, too, is also the one who didn't have any sexual relations with Corll. Brooks did.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why Brooks was so fond of him is because Corll actually showed him, showing him positive attention, and then started giving him blowjobs. That's literally what happened.
Well, so Henley said that the first abduction he participated in occurred during the time that Corll was living at Schuler Street, an address that he moved to in February of 72. Brooks later claimed that Henley became involved in the abductions while Corll resided at the address, and he occupied immediately prior to Schuler Street. If Henley's statement is to be believed, the victim was abducted from the Heights in February or early March of 72. In the statement Henley gave to the police following his arrest, the young man stated he and Corll picked up a boy at the corner of 11th and Studewood and lured him to Corll's home with the promise of smoking weed with them.
You know what this is actually just like what happened recently, or the recent last couple of years? Epstein.
Hey
Jeff.
It probably is Epstein.
No, it's very much the same thing. Epstein was having say he would get young girls come in to give him massages and do whatever else he did. He would later on, some of those girls he got in, he was paying them to have them bring over other girls, underage women and stuff like that, to do all the massages and all that stuff that he was doing in that room and everything. So
yeah,
it's very much the same. It's
well, at Corll's residence, using a ruse he and Corll had prepared, Henley cuffed his own hands behind his back, freeing himself with a key hidden in his back pocket, and then convinced the young man to wear the handcuffs. And then Corll would bind and gag him. Henley then left the young man alone with Corll, believing he was going to be sold into sexual slavery. The identity of this first victim Henley assisted in the abduction remains unknown.
Keeps a happy ending.
Right?
I don't think it was too happy.
That's awesome, Connor. I'm glad you got to meet them. I really am.
That's awesome.
Hey.
We're
doing great.
Oh, yeah. Hey. Yeah, we're doing good.
I have red hair now.
And I have a cowboy hat on.
I'm just happy about my red hair. Sorry. Haven't done that in a while. All right. So, 1 month later, on March 24th, 1972, Henley, Brooks, and Corll encountered an 18-year-old acquaintance of Henley's named Frank Aguiar. Aguiar? Yeah.
Aguiar.
Leaving a restaurant on Yale Street where he worked. Henley called him over to Corll's van and invited him to come drink and smoke some weed with them at Corll's apartment. Aguiar agreed and followed the trio to Corll's home in his Rambler.
I think this is the one that he was friends with.
Well, inside Corll's house, Aguiar smoked some weed, and then he picked up the pair of handcuffs that Corll left on his table. In response, Corll pounced on him and pushed him to the table and cuffed his hands behind his back. Henley later claimed that he had not known of Corll's true intentions towards Aguiar.
Well, I'm sorry.
When he persuaded his friend to accompany him to the home. In a 2010 interview, he claimed to have attempted to persuade Corll not to assault and kill him.
No, there's no way. He already knew what he was doing because it wasn't just that he worked there. It was Long John Silver's. They both worked there. And he had a girlfriend there. And he ended up, I think relatively soon after this, he got with a girlfriend and they were together pretty much the entire time.
Well, so, hold on. You kind of threw me off there.
Sorry.
So he claimed not to know the true intentions and tried to persuade them to stop, but he was already bound and gagged. So, however, obviously, Corll refused, informing Henley that he had raped, tortured, and killed the previous victim that he had assisted in abducting, and that he intended to do the same with Aguiar. Henley subsequently assisted Corll and Brooks in the burial at High Island Beach.
The crazy thing is that he's saying, no. His lie is selling them into sex slavery.
It's not like it's much better.
They're like, oh, okay, we can just go along with that.
Most of these people pray for death.
And he also, yeah, pretty much. And like, he also knows the kind of sex slavery he's going into. It's not going to be this, high school boys, fantasy of, oh, I'm going to be sold to all these women and all sort of stuff. No. He knew he was going to be raped by men. And he's like, well, it was just cool. Sex slavery.
Whatever.
That was fine. I'm going to do that. Deal. I didn't know he was murdering people. It's just like, shut the fuck up, dude. You knew what you were doing.
So, despite the revelations that Corll was, in reality, killing these boys, Henley became an active participant in the abductions and the murders. So 1 month later, on April 20th, he assisted Corll and Brooks in the abduction of another young man. He was 17. His name was Mark Scott, who was well known by both Brooks and Henley. And he was grabbed by force and fought furiously against Corll when he was trying to restrain him. He even attempted to stab them, all of them. However, Scott saw Henley pointing a pistol towards him, according to Brooks. Scott just gave up. Scott was tied to the torture board and suffered the same fate as Aguiar. Rape, torture, strangulation, and burial in High Island Beach.
I want to say he actually got it worse, too, because he fought back, and that really pissed Corll off.
He might have.
There's also another thing I don't think I'm going to bring up in the notes here, but one of the things, okay, so Corll, when the candy factory pretty much is like a weekend thing that he's doing right now. It's not making the money, so he had to get out and get a real job. He became an electrician. Now, one of the things that he actually liked doing, he had these little glass cylinders, about an eighth of an inch thick, that he got from from the company he worked for. He would just bring them home. And one of the ways he tortured these kids was right up the urethra and break it. That's how he was doing it. One of his favorite things he did to him.
So Brooks stated Henley was especially sadistic in his participation in the murders that he did commit at Schuyler Street. Before Corll vacated the address on June 26, Henley assisted Corll and Brooks in the abduction and murder of two more young men named Billy Balch and Johnny Delhomme. In Brooks's confession, he stated that both of them were tied to Corll's bed, and after their torture and rape, Henley manually strangled Balch and then shouted, "Hey, Johnny," and shot Delhomme in the forehead, with the bullet exiting through his ear. Delhomme then pled with Henley, "Wayne, please don't," before he was strangled. Both of them were buried at High Island Beach.
So yeah, they not only knew them.
Not only
did they know, but they also participated a little bit in it too.
Yeah. So during the time Corll resided at Schuler Street, all three of these guys lured a 19-year-old named Billy Ridinger to the house. Ridinger was tied to the plywood board, tortured, abused by Corll. Brooks later claimed he persuaded Corll to allow him to be released, and he was allowed to leave the residence. On another occasion, during the time Corll resided at Schuler Street, Henley knocked Brooks unconscious as he entered the house. Corll then tied Brooks to his bed and assaulted him repeatedly before releasing him. Despite the assault, Brooks continued to assist.
He did, but relatively soon after that, that's when he actually he did go and get into the Navy and got away from them. He wasn't even around for all the really brutal stuff that was coming up.
So after leaving the Schuler Street residence, Corll moved to an apartment at Westcott Towers, where in the summer of 1972, he is known to have killed a further 2 more victims. The first was 17-year-old Stephen Sickman. He was last seen leaving a party held in the Heights shortly before midnight on July 19th. He was savagely bludgeoned in the chest with a blunt instrument before he was strangled and buried in the boat shed. Approximately 1 month later, somewhere around August 21st, 19-year-old Roy Bunton was abducted while walking to his job as an assistant at the Houston shoe store. Bunton was gagged with a section of a Turkish towel.
What's a Turkish towel?
I don't know. And just a towel made out of Turkish cotton.
Is it?
Yes.
Or is it kind of like an Afghan or an Ottoman?
Anyway. Hi, Nadine.
Hi, Nadine. It's Davenport. Put it on. I'm going to put your keys right here.
The Schifero.
The Schifero. The Davenport. I love Family Guy.
All right, so he was gagged, and his mouth was then bound with an adhesive tape. Like, they just taped over it.
Yeah.
He was shot twice in the head and buried in the boathouse. Neither was named by Brooks or Henley as a victim. So they were only identified in 2011.
Yeah. A lot of his stuff came out later on.
Well, so on October 2nd, 1972, Henley and Brooks encountered 2 more teenagers that were from the Heights. Wally J. Simino and Richard Hembry, walking to Hembry's home. So Simino and Hembry were enticed into Brooks' Corvette and driven to Corll's Westcott Towers apartment. That evening, Simino was known to have called his mom and shouted the word "Ma" into the receiver before the connection was terminated. The following morning, Hembry was accidentally shot in the mouth by Henley, with a bullet exiting through his neck. Several hours later, both of them were strangled to death and subsequently buried in a common grave inside the boathouse shed, directly above the bodies of James Glass and Danny Yates. Sometime in the following month, 18-year-old Oak Forest young man named Willard Branch disappeared while hiking from Mount Pleasant to Houston. His gagged and emasculated body was actually buried in the boat shed. So that was a little bit different than what he had previously done.
There were a couple times where he actually did. I think it was Henley or Brooks later on, or not Brooks. Brooks didn't talk too much after his first confession. That was it. He's like not said a word since, and they're both still alive right now, Henley and Brooks. I think it was Henley or someone, or one of them said that Dean Corll, in one bite, was removing genitals.
Kyle!
Hi, Kyle!
How are you? I miss you too.
Who's Kyle again?
Redhead at the wedding.
Oh, hey, Kyle! But,
Mommy, Louis.
But there was a couple times where he literally, in one bite, was able to remove genitals. Seriously. And he did it. Corll.
No,
Monster.
I'm sorry, I have questions.
Okay.
But I'm not going to say
What's
them.
the questions?
No.
Did he gag?
No, like, is he able to deep throat, or were they small?
Who knows? They were teenage boys, and some of them probably didn't hit puberty yet, and some of them did.
All right. So, altogether, at least 10 teenagers between the ages of 13 and 19 were murdered between February and November of 72.
Jesus.
5 of
Christ.
whom were buried at High Island Beach and 5 inside the boat shed.
This guy was in high berserk mode the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
Once this happened, and he also knew his victims and stuff like that, well, that's cool. He went right for it, and then he also knew the cops weren't... I don't think he actually knew it. I don't think he cared.
He didn't really care.
Because at the time, it was pretty much just a 3-year span, and even though the cops weren't doing something, there was still some doing something. It just... They didn't really... I don't know. There's a couple times they could actually caught him, and they just didn't.
So, on January 20th, 1973, Corll moved to another location on Wirt Road in the Spring Branch district of Houston. Within 2 weeks of moving to this address, he killed 17-year-old Joseph Lyles. Lyles was known to both Corll and Brooks. He had lived on Anton Drive, the same street where Brooks resided in 73. On March 7th, Corll left this apartment on Wirt Road and moved to 2020 Lamar Drive, which is an address his dad had vacated in Pasadena.
He got the house when his dad died.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
So, no known victims were killed between February 1st and June 4th of 73. Corll is known to have suffered from hydrocele.
It's a water cyst on your testicle.
Yep.
And
In early 73, which may have contributed to this period of inactivity. In addition, around the time of Lyle's murder, Henley had temporarily moved away to Mount Pleasant in an apparent effort to distance himself from Corll. These facts may account for the sudden lull in killings. Ouch.
Oh yeah, he didn't have his helpers there anymore, pretty much. What's wrong?
Oh, that's fine. I'm just looking at this thing. So, from June, the killings increased dramatically. And both Henley and Brooks would later testify that the increase in the level of brutality of the murders committed while Corll resided at the Lamar Drive was exorbitant. So Henley later compared the acceleration in the frequency of killings and the increase in the brutality exhibited by Corll towards his victims to be like a bloodlust, adding that he and Brooks would instinctively know when Corll was to announce that he needed a new boy. I'm sorry, let me re-say that. Needed to do a new boy, and that's in quotations.
Basically, they just knew to bring by a kid every other night.
Pretty much.
That's just what they were like. If we don't do this, see, another thing too, they knew what would happen if they didn't cooperate. Is that they were going to be the next victim. Yeah. He would find a way to catch him and just do it.
Well, he already showed Brooks that he has no problem doing it.
Oh yeah, he had no problem doing it. He just the only thing was keeping them alive because he did view them as like a family in a way. He viewed them above everyone else in a sense, but he also was like, as long as you keep feeding the beast, it's not gonna be you. So. Yeah.
By the way, we're going over tonight, just because we have a little bit extra here, but that's it. So, from June. Oh, excuse me. We already got there.
Yep, I think we're on the.
Hold on. This is why I need to highlight. Due to the fact that he would appear restless, smoking cigarettes, and making reflex movements. This is how they knew that he needed somebody else. So on June 4th, Henley and Corll abducted 15-year-old William Ray Lawrence. He was last seen alive by his father on 31st Street. After 3 days of abuse and torture, Lawrence was strangled before being buried at Lake Sam Rayburn. Less than 2 weeks later, 20-year-old Raymond Stanley Blackburn was abducted, strangled, and buried at Lake Sam Rayburn. On July 6, 1973, Henley began attending classes at the Coach's Driving School in Bel Air, where he became acquainted with 15-year-old Homer Luis Garcia. The following day, Garcia phoned his mother to say he was spending the night at a friend's house. He was shot and left to bleed to death in Corll's bathtub before he was buried at the Lake Sam Rayburn. 5 days later, on July 12th, 17-year-old John Sellers of Orange County was bound and shot to death. And by the way, this is Orange County, Texas.
Is there an Orange County, Texas?
Yes, there's Orange County, Texas. There's Orange County, Florida. There's Orange County, California. There's pretty much Orange County everywhere.
Well, I get Orange County, Florida, and California. There are oranges in Orange County and was oranges in our Orange County, but there are definitely probably oranges in Florida.
We still have oranges down there.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do.
You kill all the
Anyway.
oranges. Disney killed all the oranges.
Anyway, so Sellers was bound and shot to death and then buried at High Island Beach. In July of 73, after Brooks married his pregnant fiancée, Henley temporarily became Corll's sole procurer of victims, assisting in the abduction and murder of 3 Heights young men between July 19th and 25th. Henley claimed these 3 abductions were the only 3 that occurred after his becoming an accomplice to Corll, in which Brooks was not a participant. One of these 3 victims, 15-year-old Michael Balk, brother of a previous victim, Billy Balk, was last seen with his family on July 19th on his way to get a haircut. He was strangled and buried at Lake Sam Rayburn.
Well, this is also when I said this is when Brooks bugged out, when he was just done. And actually, Brooks
He got married.
He got married, and he didn't want to do this anymore.
Well, yeah.
And Brooks doesn't come back into the picture until Corll's, until everything's opened up and everyone knows and the cops are there.
So, the other 2 victims, Charles Cobble and Marty Ray Jones, were abducted together on the afternoon of July 25th. Henley himself later buried both of them in the boat shed. Nadine! On August 3rd, 1973, Corll killed his last victim, a 13-year-old boy from South Houston named James Stanton Dremala. Dremala was abducted by Brooks and Corll while riding his bike in Pasadena and driven to Lamar Drive upon the pretense of collecting empty glass bottles to resell. See, Brooks came back.
Hey, Brooks came back. Yay.
At Corll's home, Dremala was tied to the torture board, raped, tortured, strangled with a cord before being buried in the boat shed. Brooks later described Dremala as a small blonde boy for whom he had bought a pizza, and in whose company he had spent probably about 45 minutes.
It's just the lack of caring too, because you can tell the other 2 guys they're straight up sociopaths too.
Oh yeah.
But it's just so weird that they're like, okay, we'll do this, and then knowing that these boys were going to at least, let's just say at the very least, be raped over and over and over again, and they were just completely fine with that.
So,
and then afterwards they're just completely fine, just getting Dean his fixes and all this other stuff. They did not care one bit.
all right. So, on the evening of August 7th, 1973, Henley, at the time was 17, invited a 19-year-old named Timothy Cordell Curley to attend a party at Corll's Pasadena residence. Curley was a casual acquaintance of Corll's who was intended to be his next victim. Brooks was not... Oh, let me reread that.
Yeah, Brooks was in there.
No. He accepted the offer?
Where are you at?
He accepted the offer to go to the party. It just...
Yeah, the guy,
I
the kid
phrased
did.
this wrong.
He said, yeah, the kid accepted the offer to go to the party is what happened.
This is written wrong.
Brooks was not present at all because he wasn't in town for this.
Yeah. So the 2 young men arrived at Corll's house where they sniffed paint and drank alcohol until midnight. God, Can you imagine the headache?
Oh, no, they were addicts.
Oh, so. God. Sniffing paint? Huffing paint, really? The headache from that would be...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why you have to keep doing it.
Until midnight before leaving the house to purchase sandwiches. Henley and Curley then drove back to Houston Heights, and Curley parked his vehicle close to Henley's home. Henley exited the vehicle, and hearing commotion across the street emanating from the home of his 15-year-old friend Rhonda Louise Williams, walked towards her home. Williams had been beaten by her drunken father that evening and accepted Henley's invitation to join him and Curley at Corll's home. This is where Corll gets all pissed off and bent out of shape because he brought in a girl.
He brought a girl. that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'll see.
So Williams climbed into the back seat of Curly's Volkswagen, and the three of them went over to Corll's house. At approximately 3 a.m. of August 8th, 1973, Henley and Curly, accompanied by Williams, returned to Corll's home. Corll was furious that Henley had brought a girl to his house, telling him in private that he had ruined everything.
Yeah.
Henley explained that Williams had argued with her father that evening and did not wish to return home. Corll appeared to calm down and offered them all a beer and some weed. The three teenagers began drinking, smoking a little weed, and then Henley and Curly also were sniffing paint. Corll would watch them intently. After about 2 hours, Henley, Curly, and Williams all passed out. Henley woke to find himself lying on his stomach and Corll snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. His mouth had been taped shut. His ankles had been bound together. Curly and Williams lay beside Henley, securely bound with nylon rope, gagged with adhesive tape, and lying face down on the floor. Curly had been stripped naked. Noting Henley had waken up, Corll removed the gag from his mouth. Henley protested in vain against Corll's actions, whereupon Corll reiterated that he was angry with him for bringing a girl into his house and that he was going to kill all three of them after he assaulted and tortured Curly. "Man, you blew it bringing that girl," he said, before shouting, "I'm going to kill you all, but first I'm going to have my fun." He then repeatedly kicked Williams in the chest before lifting Henley to his feet, dragging him into the kitchen and placing a .22 against his stomach, threatening to shoot him. Henley calmed Corll, promising to participate in the torture and murder of both Williams and Curly if Corll released him. After approximately 30 minutes of discussion, Corll agreed and untied Henley, then carried Curly and Williams into his bedroom and tied them to opposite sides of his torture board. Curly was on his stomach and Williams was on her back. Corll then handed Henley a hunting knife and ordered him to cut away Williams' clothes, insisting that while he would rape and kill Curly, Henley would do the same to Williams. Henley began cutting away Williams' clothes as Corll undressed and began to assault and torture Curly. Both Curly and Williams had waken up by this point. Curly began writhing and shouting as Williams, whose gag Henley had removed, lifted her head and asked Henley, "Is this for real?" To which Henley answered, "Yes." And then Williams asked, "Are you going to do anything about it?" So Henley then asked Corll whether he might take Williams into another room. Corll ignored him, and Henley then grabbed Corll's pistol, shouting, "You've gone far enough, Dean." As Corll clambered off Curly, Henley elaborated, "I can't go any longer. I can't have you kill all my friends." Corll approached Henley saying, "Kill me, Wayne." Henley stepped back a few paces as Corll continued to advance on him. "You won't do it." Henley then fired, hitting Corll in the forehead. The bullet failed to fully penetrate his skull, though, and he continued to lurch forward, where Henley then shot him 2 more times, hitting him in the left shoulder. Corll then ran out of the room, hitting the wall in the hallway. Henley fired 3 more shots into his lower back and shoulder as Corll slid down the wall in the hallway outside the room where the 2 teenagers were bound. Corll died where he fell, his naked body lying face towards the wall, like in the corner. And I'd show it to you, but I can't. So after he shot Corll, Henley released Curly and Williams from the torture board, and all 3 teenagers dressed and discussed what actions they should take. Henley suggested to Curly and Williams that they should simply leave, to which Curly replied, "No, we should call the police." Henley agreed and looked up the number for the Pasadena Police Department instead of just calling 911.
Now, I don't think we really need to get the rest of this because
no, we don't.
It's pretty much done right there. Now, what happened here was, though, the reason why Henley and Brooks got in trouble, well, Henley could have been seen as a hero here. He could have been the guy who killed the boogeyman, basically. If he would have just kept his mouth shut, because Brooks was smart. He kept his mouth shut. He wanted to move on and actually get away from all this stuff. Henley, on the other hand, opened up almost immediately and started spilling the beans about everything. Everything. Because the cops could have put everything together when they got in there. Hey, this man abducted these 3 kids, and he was the one who's taking all the missing kids and all this other stuff and doing what he was doing with them. And that would have been that. But Henley just opened his mouth, and they ended up going to jail. Brooks and Henley, and they're still there to this day.
Henley got 99, or got a total of 594 years for his participation.
Mm-hmm.
Brooks got, let me look, I have the notes right here. His lasted less than a week. The jury only deliberated for 90 minutes before reaching a verdict, and he was found guilty in Lawrence's murder. And he was sentenced to life imprisonment.
Yeah.
They're still currently in there. Henley is actually eligible for parole in 2025 in October.
Which there is a good chance he probably would get it. If he's been good, he probably is going to get paroled.
Brooks died from COVID.
Oh. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, May 28th. I did not know that.
He was 65.
That's why I should read the notes.
Yep. Brooks died from COVID.
Yeah, Brooks kept his mouth shut after his little confession he had. He never said a word. Not a word about anything. But...
All right, guys. Well,
That's
thank
it.
you for joining us tonight. We've gone a little bit over. We probably could go more, to be honest.
Yeah. But the rest was just what happened. And like I said, we already described the boathouse and how they had to dig through it. They actually got prisoners from the local jail to do it instead of getting professionals in there. Another mess up of the Houston PD and stuff like that.
Well, they didn't want to do the work.
No, yeah, they literally, like, people, they were in, like, knee-deep corpse juice.
Split.
And another detail.
It was bad enough when I found my cat.
One of the genitalias that he actually sealed in a bag, and they discovered it buried in there, almost like it was just ripped off a minute ago. Yeah, it was a pretty graphic thing. So.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful night, and tomorrow, make sure that you tune in for, gosh, my brain just stopped. Okay, Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. And then on Tuesday, Mikey will be back. I'm not sure what the subject's going to be, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Today is the last day to get in your submissions for the contest, for the costume contest. And that means tomorrow is going to start the voting. So make sure that you go to psychobunnydc.com and vote for your favorite costume. We actually have some great submissions this year. I know Kisa submitted something. If you guys want to go check her out.
Too.
And we have several other people. I just know Kisa's in here tonight.
Yeah.
So, also, we will be announcing the winners during an interview with the guys from Monsters Is Real.
Monsters Is Real.
So we're going to be talking, well, actually, we won't. Aka, Hexus, and Mother Dale Mort are actually going to be talking to some monster hunters. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. You have a good night, too.
All right. We're out.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.